Okay, just some more stuff on animating some of your 3D logos and a few tips that will actually help out. Sometimes it's a lot easier to start where you want to end up and then just kind of set the keys there and then go backwards. So this was an idea from one of the students of like how just a quick kind of deal of it forming a logo and then having extra pieces in there. And also, this is using the hardware renderer, which is how we have this effect here. If we did a software render, which should be pretty fast, we just take a look at that and see, we would get this kind of retro-y effect of neon. And that gives us the glow, and it also gives us, if we click right here in the render view, what the alpha looks like. Even though the it looks like it's holes in it, it actually is a cube that is somewhat skewed on the sides and has some mesh effects to actually create the outline around it. That is actually making the glow, and then just tweaked out the glow shader. So this would be your alpha that you would that it would have, meaning the everything black would be dropped out, and you could put it in After Effects and have whatever sort of background you want, or transition the background. Um, and this is what it actually would look like. Okay, so just something to consider. So if I had something like this and I wanted to actually make something like this, the first thing I wanted to show is just a couple of tools that may help everybody out when you're working inside of here. So the videos that you guys have seen, oops, that's not what I want to see. Um, the videos you guys have seen have been using Mash and using a few other things, and I also gave you access to some of my other videos. But just like we did with some of these lights, you don't have to use Mash, the motion graphics thing. And really, the the basic idea is just getting whatever the idea that you have and finding the simplest way of achieving it. Okay. So in the case of this one, I'm just going to go Alt B to change my background so I can actually see. Also, just so you can see, I can turn on shadows, which means that if I did have objects that are out here, they would be casting shadows. Now, it should be noted, spotlights that works for, it does not work for point lights. So you're not, because this is a hardware render, you're not going to get shadows from a point light. You would, however, get it from a an actual light like this, but it's just not set up for it. I have it set up for hardware shadows. That's why we're not seeing it. We're seeing all these little glows and stuff. So, but just so you can get the idea, there's two types of renders, and we'll be discussing more of that in class. But well, there's more than two, but we're primarily going to be working with the hardware renderer whenever possible, and I'm also going to show how to do that um, more of a software render that will get us this effect here, just so long as it stays fast. So, real quick, so something like this. When I create a cube or any object, and I've got my little manipulators here, I'm just going to zoom in on that. And I'm also going to go to mode 5, not the lighting, so it's a little bit easier to see it. Now, you notice I'm moving things right now, and you can see it changing the properties of where its coordinates are, right? Now, I want you to notice something. If I rotate this and go back, as I move this, it's moving multiple ones, but it's moving it along the axis that I turned it. So what that basically means, I'm a Z out of that. There are two types of axes that you can actually move stuff in. Object-based And that means that when I created this object, this is the z-axis, this is the y, and that is the x. So no matter where I rotate it right now, this is always basically going to pull it along the x based off of its original creation and the direction it was in. But there's also world axes. So what would happen is if I rotated this like this, but I didn't want to move it along its axes, I wanted to move it across the world axes, I hold down W, hold down left mouse button, and you see there's object, world, and there's a bunch of other options that you actually have. But if I set it to world, you notice that the manipulator now reset. So now no matter how much I rotate this, it's always going to pull towards the world axis only on the X. When I pull that one only on the Z and only on the Y. And the reason that's important is because there's going to be times that trying to move things to a certain position, you'll have to toggle back and forth between these. And once again, that's hold down W, left mouse button, and then you choose, do I want object or world? And you can also reorientate it to a face or an edge or something like that. But this is going to come in really, really handy. So in the case with these guys coming here, it'd be too difficult and too much of a pain in the butt to actually keep on moving them world axes because I want it to go in a straight line. World axis would mean like, oh, forward, then down, and then it tries to calculate the shortest distance. Whereas if I take this, and let's just say we're going to recreate that real quick. So I have this, I'm going to make it just a wee bit bigger, scale it out, and I'm going to make sure that I have it to object. Okay. Duplicate it. Rotate it. Now you notice it's object right now, which means this is what I was talking about, where it's up and then down to try and get the angle that I want. When it could be easier, W, world axis, just to lift it up. Object, duplicate it. Let's take the duplicate, set it to world so I can push it over here. Rotate. And ideally I'd probably be looking at this in the front view so it lines up a lot easier. I'm not going to spend too much time, but I just want to show you. So, but you'll notice here's a weird thing. So if I scale it right now, it gets all weird. If I set it back to object, it's still in world on scale. So W left mouse will change the translate, the move, whether it's on world or object mode, but R for scale, R left mouse button, object, and now I can actually scale it along that axis. So it's just something to think about. It doesn't seem like it'd be that big of a deal, but it actually is. So just keep that in mind. And as I line these guys up, then I can grab, like, I'm going to grab these vertices, and I'm going to move them along. Boom, so I can get them nice and flat. Grab these, so I can get them. Based off of the angle that I want. Vertex, grab that. And you see how I'm just shaping it into what I want it to be. Grappo, pull it down. There, that's looking cool. And it's not taking me that long now. But just that one little thing saves an immense amount of time. Um, this works. And it just allows me just to get what I want in a much shorter amount of time to get the effect that I want and say, yep, that is it. That is what I was looking for. Yay. If I really want to be anal about this, I could actually just take this one, move to world, push it to it to make sure that things are lining up the way they should. So then I go, yeah, that's why it doesn't look right. So I want to take these guys, switch it back to object mode so it doesn't skew itself. Yeah. And this is just a nice way that I can really get these guys lined up exactly the way I want. Go back into world mode just to push this back. Give it a nice even space. I could do the same with that one as well. But you get the idea. So that is just holding down W, going from, then holding down left mouse button. And this works with E, and it works with R. So move, rotate, and scale.